We are live. Welcome, folks, to the latest installment of the Coaches Connect call. I'm Coach Jeremy, and right off the bat, we have an update from Coach Laura on one of her clients who she's been giving us some regular updates on, and it sounds like you have some useful progress updates to share with us.
I do.
And maybe a
Well,
question?
yeah, share a couple comments. Well,
Excellent.
Happy New Year, everyone. And Jeremy, thanks for the opportunity to kick off the call today. So I've had this client that I've been working with probably now about 5 weeks, and it's really exciting for her to share some of her outcomes. And we had a call last night actually, and we started with capacity because that's where she was struggling with getting back to regular strength trainings as an example. So I remember if you we talked probably a month ago on this call about, what's the best way to someone to take a realistic look about their schedule and that they time and commitment they have. So fast forward ahead, she was able to find capacity thanks to the tools that this great team provided to all of us as coaches through the planning and capacity worksheet, and it was a big eye opener for her. So she's doing regular meal prep on Sunday nights to prepare her for the week for her meals for her and her kids. She has integrated back into regular strength training, so 2 times a week she does strength as well as 1 time a week she does cardio. And she is eating, we spent a lot of time on eating more mindfully and stopping at 70 or 80% fullness, making sure she's being strategic. We started with the nutrition calculator because she really wants to lose body fat and also reduce muscle. So that's we got to, figure that one out because you can go with a calorie surplus or deficit. She's a 45-year-old woman, so we kind of worked through what that could look like for her. So when she got on the call last night and talked about all the great things that she's doing, she said, "Hey, you know what?" And we're focused on recomposition. She said, "I can't believe this, but my waist size is down from 27 to 26 in 4 weeks because of this habit and behavioral change, right?" She lost a pound, and our intent is not to even lose any weight at this point. She feels in more control about her food, and we focused a little bit now on kind of the healthy, minimally processed, drinking more water. She had some digestion problems, so making sure she's drinking water first thing in the morning before she goes to her coffee. She went from drinking like 2 glasses a day to now drinking a gallon of water a day. So like all these things, and she's 100% committed. So one of the things that I want to put out there to this group, and I don't know if and if you've read the book, what's the James Clear, right? The
Atomic
Atomic
Habits.
Habits, which I follow regularly. And her question is, "Hey, I'm doing this. I'm going to integrate another strength training. She wants to do one more, based on what her targets are. And she has to do it in her mind at the end of the day, which is fine. She's got kids and she's a very successful, professional. It's getting the motivation without a partner at the gym or someone to get up every morning, go to work, and hit the gym. So I'd given her a suggestion of making sure she's packing her clothes at night, putting her gym bag in her car. So it kind of visualizing, hey, after work today, before I come home, I'm going to the gym. So that's working for her. And she sends me pictures every week. So we're in a good mode. So now it's kind of like we're not adding any more actions to your plan, Sarah. But what she said to me, which kind of resonated, was I want to be able to do this forever, right? In her mind, although we've got to make sure people are not perfectionists and they're building in flexibility in their plan, but at the same time, without having to at some point sending me pictures, right? Making sure that it gets done and that at some time we can, you know, say goodbye and she can move on and she's got these lasting, habits that continually move forward based on her goals, her why, and getting that self motivation all the time. So, and she's very self disciplined, and we're building on her strengths and her, ability and need to have structure in her life to get her to where she is today. So, the question to the group is, how do we help her with building this habit over time without having to have me as that accountability partner, which she loves right now. But at some point, I've got to get her to a place, whether it's the environment, whether it's her, end goal of living her optimal
Mhm.
life of longevity. So that's where we're at with my friend Sarah, and really appreciate, Jeremy, all the coaching that you've provided and the tools that this great company has provided to us as coaches, because it's really helping, really helping. And I got a new client because of her. So to start off the year, it's great.
Yeah, so this is fantastic. Just for folks who may have not been on some of the initial calls, or for folks who are seeing this in the future, I believe some of the strategies used with Sarah, specifically when we're referring to capacity, one of the main things was you had her do kind of like a time audit, and we had a whole conversation regarding tools that can be used for a time audit. So some that PN provides, such as kind of one of the handout forms that has folks record kind of the course of their day or several days. We also discussed some apps and ways to time block on a calendar. And your client came back and said, hey, just from kind of looking at the forms, I realized that this is largely a time specific issue. And I need to uh, clear up that capacity issue by thinking differently about how I use my time. And they had this great revelation, which allowed them to kind of restructure their life in a way where they were able to focus a little bit more on their health goals without feeling like they have to be a very specific way, which is interesting because you mentioned as an update now, that client is feeling like I want to add another day. I feel like I have more capacity, but it has to be at this very specific kind of like time. It has to be after work, and that's the only way to do it. An interesting kind of reflection from based on previously when they thought that way, it ended up being a limiting factor. And when they adjusted their framing and viewpoint for it, realized, oh, I can actually do this in a different way. And I think one of those framing points was I have to go to the gym for 60 minutes. Like that's the only way that this works for me. So that may be something that you explore again with this client regarding uh, do you need to add a new thing or are things kind of like in a great place for you right now and maintenance is more important? If you decide that I can and want to and should do that new thing, uh, does it have to exist in the way that I've originally brought that concept up, or can the concept change over time? So it's like, oh, maybe that's one that we do at home. Maybe that's one that doesn't have to be after work. And it sounds like this is kind of where you're playing now. Uh, but to get to your deeper question, the one that you put up for us today, which I think is a fantastic question, how do I ensure that the habits and the frameworks that we're building between coach and client maintain once we take away the coach? Which is a really interesting question. And it's one that I've put a good deal of thought into. And I have some thoughts to share with you, but I want to open it up to our coaches here first and see, coach, how do you ensure the things that you are building with your clients are able to weather the transition from one to one work to maybe less frequent interaction to kind of removing yourself entirely from the equation? Because as Laura points out, we want to build structures and frameworks for our clients that they can keep going, that they keep that flywheel spinning based on their own desires, as opposed to having that external connection point or validation or motivation coming from someone else. Coaches, what are your thoughts? Sharif.
Hello, everyone. I think a good starting point for this particular issue is that the more gradual you make the transition, the easier it gets for the client to be able to be completely independent versus removing the coach entirely in one step. For the client, they would freak out even if they're ready. They would psychologically feel that they need a coach and they want someone who can hold them accountable for their actions and their habits and taking care of them in their language. So I think the best way for it is to reduce the touch points gradually by time. So for example, if they see you, if they meet you on Zoom or at the gym 3 times per week, make it two and then one until they can meet maybe once every month and then once every 2 months. 2 months. I think that's for me, that was the most realistic way to do it. Despite that some clients would are not convinced that the coach should should stop coaching them at any point for psychological reasons, mainly, not because that the habits are couldn't be sustained as much as they feel they need it. Hope that makes sense.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback, Sharif.
And
Laura, anything that
Sharif,
you want to respond to?
yeah, and yes, and I love that because I started out, it's actually been 6 weeks since we've been together now that I reflect. So our first 4 weeks were weekly. I'm like, okay, well, let's now back it down to every other week. And then to your point, even though she said to me, well, because we kind of have like a 90-day kind of goal. She's like, well, after 90 days, I still want to at least meet with you once monthly. I'm like, okay, which is okay, right, Sharif, to your point. And I think what you prompted for me is after a while, you don't need to text me your Monday night meal prep, although she loves to do it, right? And you don't have to text me every time you're at the gym and she's there like this, which is again fun and it's great and it excites her. But we could maybe stop that. So instead of texting me every time, maybe it's just, hey, just text me one time at the gym this week instead of the, all 5 workouts that you're at, just so I know that you got a pulse and you're out there, showing up because the magic is in consistency and the magic is in the showing up, right? Even if I can get to the gym and pull out that door, it's highly likely I'm going to stay at the gym, right? And then the last thing I'm going to say to that is, Jeremy, if you remember, she's got a treadmill in the gym right in her house. And she
Hmm.
said last night, like, I've been thinking about that. I've got to be more. And she totally cleaned the clutter in her basement when we first met. Like, that's the first part of it, like getting rid of all the clutter, feeling organized, removing any barriers. Like, I can't even get to my basement. So she's got that opportunity. So this additional training that she's going to add, we kind of talked about habit stacking. Let's take an additional some routine that
Hmm.
you have and then build this in somehow. So Sharif, great advice. Thank you. I will take that and continue to implement. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Can I
And I'm
add
glad.
another to her question?
Oh,
If you don't mind?
uh, please go ahead. Oh, sorry. Do you have a question or is this a comment for
That's
Laura?
a question related to her question.
Here, we'll go to Juliet first, and then we'll come back to you, Sharif.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, it's very, my feedback is very simple. And Laura, you already mentioned it is really establish at the beginning of the relationship is, being part of the goals, like, eventually cutting off the coach out of this process. And if that's part of the goal, then, from time to time, evaluating where the person is on that continuum using the confidence scale on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that we can now, slow down the relationship or establish a new kind of schedule? So I know it's a simple, and you already mentioned that you had that goal, but then just go back to the goal as part of one of the goals that they're trying to reach is, so if they're, I don't know, if it's one, then we continue the relationship, and as we go, we work on skills to get the client to be more independent. And anyway,
Yeah, I love that, the confidence scale, because we've done a lot of I've done a lot of habit change specifically with Sarah. And I mean, she's writing in a journal every night. She's doing the water now. Like, there's so many things. I'm like overwhelmed with her progress, which is fantastic. So some of these things I know she's going to keep going because she sees the value. She's part of her routine. But I love kind of just doing a level reset moment with her periodically to say, hey, how confident are you could do this, without me? 1 to 10. 10, I'm like highly confident, see you later, or not so much. So I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that feedback, Juliet. Uh, I said I had some feedback for you here, and this is kind of a good segue into that. And you mentioned the exact, so it's like uh, listening for this specific talk. I often hear this as we approach the natural conclusion for coaching for a lot of folks, and I refer to it as kind of the slippery slope. So, working with client, been working with them for a medium to long term period, and they've gotten to a place where they're quite stable and they're doing the things. They're either aware of the behaviors they need to engage in, or they're regularly completing the behaviors that they need to engage in. And things are in quite a stable place. So it's like, don't really need to add anything new. We could potentially work on some other ancillary things, but they were never really mentioned as primary issues initially. Can continue to refine the stuff we're working on. And it would likely be helpful for me to just stay on for the accountability aspect that you mentioned as well. But the client has now mentioned that it's like, I I am more concerned about going back to the way things were as opposed to continuing to develop new things. And this is normally where I start to ask questions about kind of their deeper why. So as you mentioned as well, this is something that I find to be incredibly valuable because it's normally a sign for me as a coach. It's like, oh, we may be reaching our conclusion here. Now my goal is to confirm why they are continuing to do the things they do aside from me. So taking myself out of the equation and the accountability that I provide, what is the value of this practice? And this is something that you just mentioned. This is what triggered the conversation. What is valuable about working out? What is valuable about drinking water? What is valuable about meal prepping for Sarah and her kids? The more clarity we have at this stage, the more comfortable that I feel as a coach to say, you know what, we are in a good place and I'm proud of the work we're done and we get to shake hands as friends now and move on. And I know that you will continue to do the thing. And I have strong confidence that you will be able to face challenges and continue to do the thing because you have strongly demonstrated why these things are valuable to you. You clearly understand the value of these actions, and it's unlikely that you would face strong enough setbacks that you would just stop doing them cold turkey. It's no longer because my accountability and my presence you're doing it. You're very clear on why you're doing the thing. And you tell me this regularly, and it comes up in our conversations. Another thing that I will note is that I also understand that most people will likely do better with some level of accountability and support, whether that's from a coach or not. If you think about this, even in kind of your own life, we almost all do better when we have more support as opposed to less support. So it can be true that my client will continue to do the thing, but maybe my presence does make it a little bit easier. And I realize that this comes across like, how self-serving a thought is this? And maybe a little bit, but if and this kind of goes to Coach Kate's comment in the chat box, who's driving that pullback and why? So this is one of the reasons where it's like, even if I have a client where like we haven't worked on a new skill or we haven't added in something new to their practice in a long time, it's very rare that I say, hey, I think we're done here, and I wipe my hands of them and kick them to the curb. I am always listening for that client to share kind of like where they're at and let them know that it's perfectly fine. If you want to stop coaching as of this moment, I'll let you know where I think we still maybe need to do some work, or that, hey, I think you'll be okay. But if they're driving that pullback, letting them know that it's like, let's examine those values, make sure that you're all clear. If they don't need to leave, then there's no real reason for you to kick them out unless you feel like, hey, I need this spot for another client, or I just don't have time for you, and I feel like you're in a really good place.
Yeah. No, I love that feedback. And hey, we got a long way to go. I mean, she's premenopausal. I mean, there's so many things that we can and will continue to explore. And the one thing to your point is she's not just using me as an accountability partner, and maybe many of you have seen this with your clients. She's bringing in her tribe, right? Her family. So last week, she goes, "Here's my meal," but my mother, she's got her, mother in town from Morocco. So my mother said, I know you're really busy. Let me help you. And she's all into carbs. And she's like, Mom, you don't cook what I would need. I need some protein. I need this. She goes, no, tell me what you want me to make. So she sent me a picture and she was very honest. She goes, I didn't do this, but my mother did. But who cares, right? So she's bringing in her family. The week before, her boyfriend, Bruno, she's like, well, he did the meal prep, and then this week she's having her son, Aiden, who's 13, make one meal. So she's bringing in her family. So now we're not just creating a healthier Sarah, we're creating a healthier family, overall. So the impact that we all have as coaches is amazing, I believe.
Strong agree there. The
Yeah.
impact is deeper than the individual they're often working with, especially when we get to work with caregivers and other folks who have other people in their community who are also following their example, which may be one of the things that you ask in terms of the value of the work that we've done together. How does that reflect or how does that feature in other relationships that you have? So for caregivers, how does that work with kids? If a child who's like maybe taking care of a parent or things of that nature, someone who is kind of a leader in their own space, all of those things may be additional values that they haven't considered for the work that they're currently doing, but may help strengthen their desire to continue to want to do the thing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Dave, yeah, no worries. David, I saw that you'd raised your hand. Was there something you wanted to add before we move on to Sharif?
Yeah, because sometimes when we're actually trying to let a client go, they could psychologically be like, "Well, what's wrong? Why are you trying to get rid of me?" And that could also throw them, could actually have them go in the reverse potentially, because we all create stories about ourselves. So I just wanted
Yep.
to
And I
highlight
mean,
that.
Janice provides another option here where it's like, hey, if we want to move to a lower touch coaching model, uh, that is something that you can work on developing. As I know, Laura, you have a coaching background, but maybe this is something that you add in for 2026. This is part of your service offering where you have that once a month connection check in. Again, don't have to offer a new thing, but as we know, folks do better with more support, and having Coach Laura in your back pocket might be something that really helps that client.
Yeah, I think I'm going to add that. I like that. That's
Cool.
great. Thank you, David.
Uh, Sharif, you had a question that you wanted to tag on.
Yeah, I love Laura's question because it triggers so many common situations in coaching in general, like the common question that we usually face. Until when am I gonna coach this person? Or he's asking, until when are you gonna coach me in his mind without even saying it? And from my daily interactions with clients in a on a floor gym, it's usually the same question, but in a different setup. It's the setup of having, until when are you gonna program for me? Like write his training program and change it and refining it and raising the bar and changing the goals. This sounds like a never-ending process for some clients. So I can never really say like this is when it ends or this is when you're ready to write your own training, design your own workouts. Things like that for me are like a big question mark. Like when is it gonna end? Or for me, the habits seem much more clear when the person doesn't need me to be accountable for him or her doing the habits that they're supposed to do. From my perspective, the workouts and the training is much more complex because they might never be there.
So before we move on, I'm curious to know what is there? How do you define there for your clients or for an individual client?
I'm referring to a client who is constantly looking for a challenge and looking to
Mhm.
improve with good structural balance across patterns and muscle groups. So someone
Gotcha.
who's always trying to challenge himself or herself, but they're
Mhm.
not looking for like a competition, like a physique competition or a high rocks race or anything like that. They're just
Mhm.
into the challenge and improving their fitness and working on themselves as part of a self-improvement journey.
Gotcha. Bear, I would say take a look at the chat box if you haven't. For Coach Kate, when someone is asking that question of like how long will we be working together? As a coach, I think it is good to have kind of a standard canned response. So, what does that question actually mean? If I'm sitting down with a new prospective client, they're like, how long will we be working together? By and large, I do not know, depending on each individual client. So someone's like, hey, I have a race in August and I want you to coach me on recovery strategies, then maybe I'm working with them till August. But if they're coming with something that's a little less easily defined, as Coach Kate says, it's going to be until one of us taps out. So as long as both of us are comfortable continuing to work together, this relationship can continue to exist. And then at a certain point, likely if the client feels like I've learned all the things I need for most folks that I work with, that tends to be about 6 to 8 months. So if they're asking that question without a clearly defined goal, that's my canned response. Most folks who work with me tend to work with me for about 6 to 8 months. Some of them will stay on longer because they find the accountability is a net positive for them, and others will finish up there and potentially return in the future if their circumstances change or their goals change. Cool. Well, I mean, Laura, thank you for starting off that conversation. And Sharif, any additional questions or any additional feedback required there for your question?
No, I think Katrina summed it up.
Yeah, that is a good response to have here. It's like many questions or many, I think there's a certain amount of, we'll call it instability or a lack of predictability that may exist in coaching. Uh, there are times where it's like your client roster may be breaking at the seams and you're thinking about, oh, I need to add a new coach or I need to change up my entire coaching model. And there may be other times where it's looking a little bit lean and you have more time. It's hard to predict uh, those things in the coaching space entirely, but that's not, I think, unique to our profession. That's likely true of a lot of professionals. So working on always building that base and then having happy clients who are happy to tell people about your work is probably useful. As John Goodman puts it, there are two rules: do a good job and let everyone know about it. Uh, Coach Kate, what's up?
I guess I'm just really thinking about the conversation we're having here and the thread underneath that comes up a lot in coaching because it's one of our primary questions that we're trying to answer. And perhaps one of the primary questions our clients are asking. And the question is, how long before I got it, right? Like, so how long before it becomes an automatic habit? How long before, whatever it is, how long before I don't have to think about it anymore? And I actually would argue that for some habits, the answer is never, truly, for various reasons. Because where I live, if I have to drive everywhere and I'm working from home, that makes my lifestyle pretty sedentary. How long before I don't have to think of my step count? Possibly never, because the way my infrastructure and my entire environment is, it's built to keep me very sedentary, right? Like, so if I don't think about it, I will be sitting on my butt all day, every day, driving everywhere. So that might actually need to be in my conscious mind kind of forever. How long before I don't have to think about my screen time? Maybe that answer is never, right? Because again, the entire infrastructure and the system, and for as long as we're working remotely and we're working on our computers and we're using phones and we are on social media and we're using social media for our business, maybe the answer is never. We will always have to be cognizant of it. How long before I don't have to think about portion sizes at a restaurant eating out? Well, possibly never, because again, if you've ever gone out, you've seen what the portion size will look like. You might always have to pay attention. At the same time, if I change my entire lifestyle, move to the farm, and now work, manual labor 12 hours a day, well, then I have changed my entire life, right? Like, so, but I think the question there to ask is what we're expecting even reasonable? Right? Like, how long before when I travel, my veggie consumption doesn't drop? That's not a thing. If you travel, your veggie consumption will drop. It just will, right? Like, I've traveled enough, I can guarantee you that that is the case. So, unless you're traveling and living in Whole Foods and carrying salad containers around, I can guarantee you that that's what will happen, right? So, maybe that's just not the goal. So when we're asking for that unconscious effortlessness, maybe that is not a realistic destination. And
Kate, you
instead,
reminded me.
go ahead, Jer.
So yeah, sorry, you remind me. One of the example questions you shared there is an exact question that I actually received from a client who is now a fantastic coach themselves. But the question was, how long before I don't need to think about my eating behaviors? And it was a question that like stopped me dead in my tracks because I was like, I really have no good answer for this. And the only answer I can give is like, never, maybe. And it felt so unsatisfying to give that answer. But as you say, it is more or less true. Like, there are some behaviors that we're engaging in or that we help clients build, and it's like, yeah, you don't stop doing the thing. It's very much why we as a organization, as PN, don't regularly kind of promote some things that are synonymous with diets. Of course, we're helping people change the way they eat, but we're largely looking at long-term behavior change. And long-term ensures that it's like, I'm going to do the thing for as long as it's valuable to me. And as long as thinking about your eating behaviors is valuable to you, you will likely continue to do it.
And I think for as long as valuable is a really key point, because I do invite all of you here to consider if there has been a habit in the past that you have adopted and practiced regularly that was good for you, that you no longer practice. And you don't feel a particular way about it. Like, I'm not talking about falling off and feeling bad about it, but I'm talking, like, I can think of myself, I used to do yoga every single day. I no longer do. I don't feel bad about it. My life has changed, my identity has changed, my beliefs have changed, what I value has changed, my sport has changed. I used to meditate every day. I no longer do. I also don't feel bad about it because I go for walks, I go for runs, and I journal. Things have changed, right? So also keep in mind that not all habits that we adopt have to be forever. Nothing is forever. Everything
Hey,
will.
Kate,
Go ahead, Laura.
you made a great point there. And I was thinking about this too as I was reflecting, our existential identity or purpose changes. So I've been in a place where I've had little kid, smaller kids like my client here, but now I'm an empty nester. So my motivation, my ability, my routines, can change. So for
Your
her,
capacity, your
your
availability.
capacity, your availability, all those things. So as we're dealing with our clients and as we look at our own experiences, we've got to make sure we're meeting that client where they are, right? Like I'm like in my back of my head, I'm like, why can't you get up in the morning and run? But wait a second. She's got a 13-year-old, she's got a 9-year-old, she's got to take him to school. Like, okay, right. So I've got to remind myself her identity, where she's going, what she wants to be is very different. So you just brought up a really great point. And it's the motivation behind what fuels her to get to the gym before she goes home after work, after a very tired, long day. So again, it's just to help her, remind her also what a great job she's doing because, we're a cheerleader too, right? So, but thank you for bringing that out because I thought about that as I was reflecting on the conversation I had with her last night.
Sorry, I was just answering questions in the comments. Uh, for Zeta website, have a website if it's useful and it provides the functionality you need. Otherwise, some sort of online presence is typically encouraged if you're an online first coach, but a social page can do the work there. And in terms of payment, Coach Kate, what do we normally say? PayPal works for a lot of folks. It's mostly, I think, based on your geography and what's available to you. So
I think for payment, it will just also depend what it is you provide because some
mhm.
platforms, folks here use Trainerize. Does anyone use Trainerize? Can you confirm if thanks, Jer. Can you do payment in Trainerize?
You can do payment in Trainerize. I do not take payment in Trainerize. I use PayPal.
Any particular reason why you don't take payment in Trainerize?
Because when I started using it, they didn't offer it. And I had already started using PayPal, and the inertia of changing to a different thing
Yeah,
didn't make sense.
yeah,
Uh,
Stripe. Laura, I'm
yeah,
curious, do you use like Stripe as Stripe, or is it another platform that backs onto Stripe?
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. So I have a website, and through my website, I use Acuity scheduling, which then feeds into Stripe, which allows me to take any credit card, PayPal, Venmo, the whole nine yards. So whatever they want to, however they want to pay me, it's all there for them.
Yeah, so I would actually point that out that a lot of people, I would say even most people now use Stripe. At the same time, no one uses Stripe per se as itself
That's
because
correct. I apologize.
it's
Yes,
an
it's through
incredibly
Acuity. Yep.
bulky behemoth-like thing.
Hmm.
If you've ever been on the back end, it is pretty ugly, but you will see that most platforms will integrate with Stripe. So something like Moonclerk or Trainerize or whatever would then integrate with Stripe, like even like Flowdesk, if you're doing that through email. Yeah, so there's Janice uses Stripe also. Janice, how do you use Stripe? What is it backing? Like what's the tool?
I have software called Coach
Yep.
Room Solutions, and that's how I use it for
Yeah.
selling products, booking, everything. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like a lot of things are kind of backing onto that hardware.
Right.
Cool. Zeta, does that answer your questions?
Yeah, it does. So I'm almost done with the certification. I decided to hop on again after a while. So I know I saw the videos you guys posted on YouTube, which helped a lot. And then so I think I might use PayPal for now, just because it's kind of new to me. And I did try the website, the PN website. I had it up online for a while, but um I was still trying to complete my certification back then. So I think I'm almost done with the certification. So I think probably in April I'll have the website up. But yeah, I just want to know like how you started in terms of with PN. Like, does the website help? Is it convenient? Because it's really straightforward.
Sorry, can I pause you for 1 second? When you say the website, do you mean like our Pro Coach software?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yes. Oh, continue.
It's really convenient. It's just, I guess, do you guys send out clients to PN coaches, or it's pretty much the website getting certified and that's pretty much it?
So are you asking how PN coaches get their clients?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean, PN coaches get their clients in a whole bunch of different ways, but it's largely up to you to get your clients. So if that's why you're asking about like, is a website useful? It's useful to share with people after you've had a conversation with them, but I largely wouldn't use a website to drive traffic to your coaching business. We've seen, think of this as a PN as a huge, large organization that has a website with thousands of pages. We've noticed that over the last like 5 to 10 years, our website traffic is much lower than it's been previously. Whereas website traffic used to drive a whole bunch of our coaching clients to our programs or to our certifications. That's just not true the way that it used to be. Which is largely why I don't encourage folks to be like, the first thing you need to do is spend money on creating a website, where you have free options available, like creating a social media presence on Instagram or TikTok or something of that nature, where there's no cost. You can work on it kind of as an individual. You don't really need an additional skill set per se to develop most of those pages. Obviously, having the ability to create content of interesting content is useful, but there are lots of tools that can help you do that that are very minimal cost. Whereas typically, if you're going to have a website, there's going to be some sort of web hosting fee.
Okay. Yeah, so I noticed PN does offer a website, right? So have you had coaches have the PN website to coach and receive client? Have you had coaches done that before, like posting, having the PN coaching website?
Zeta, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So if I say to you right now, yes, there have been coaches that found the website helpful. And yes, there have been coaches that use that to coach. How does that help you specifically today?
Well, it lets me know that there are other coaches doing it as well. Because
Well,
this is
I think
online coaching is kind of new.
what I'm
Online,
trying to go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead, sorry.
I guess what I'm trying to point out is that because coaching is such an open-ended industry, Jer and I can probably attest that pretty much anything is possible. Like literally name it, it exists. There is a coach for it, and they're charging money for it, right? Like if
I've
you
seen coaches try and get clients on Tinder before.
and I'm sure that can
I
work
wasn't on there, but I've seen it happen.
quite effectively. Hearsay, Jerry was a friend of a friend. But my point is, Ada, to your original question, because the industry is so wide and it's so expansive and it's not regulated. We literally like it's the world is your oyster. We have seen it all happen, but I always want to point it to you because we're here for you as a coaching call for all of you here to take the next action. Similarly to when people ask, how much do coaches charge? Well, coaches charge. I'm pretty confident in this range because I've seen it. Coaches charge somewhere between $100 a month and $1,200 a month. That is a huge range. So I, as a coach, considering what to charge for me, getting that response is actually not super helpful because now I have this huge range and what do I do with it? Similarly to we've seen those questions come up in the community as well. What is the best protein powder? What is the protein powder you guys like? You can experiment. You can go and ask that question. You will have 300 recommendations in the next 24 hours. And then my question to you will be, now the hell, what? Like, what do you do with 300 recommendations? How do you take that information and make an informed decision going forward? All right, so Zeta, I guess like what I'm pinging at here is kind of trying to get maybe at the question underneath the question so we can help you move forward rather than answer the actual question that you're asking. Are you with me?
Yeah, it's because going over the certification, the book, and everything, it really helps you understand where it really helps you move the client forward in terms of their goals and everything. So, my understanding at this point, okay, getting certified is important for sure, and then being patient with the client. Obviously, the meetings are going to be important for the client. But through the website, through the software, it really seems like it helps you like guide the clients step by step to reach their goals. So it's really interesting to me. But my worries, my thoughts at first were okay. So if I have this website up, will I be reached? Will I have clients? Will things like that came to mind. And then, yeah, so definitely have to charge a little bit over $100 just because I see that there is like a monthly due, right? If you're going to have clients, right? Depending on the amount of clients you have.
Well,
So it sounds like I think I can take this one, Kate. So it sounds like you're talking about Pro Coach and the fee. So for 0 to 20 clients, that's $99 a month. You are correct, and it kind of goes back to what Coach Kate was saying as well, in terms of what are the net inputs into your coaching business. Your coaching business should cover that cost. And from what I've seen, typically it should be about the fee that you charge up to 2 clients should cover all of your inputs. Unless your business is much more expensive, as a single coach, your cost should be covered by no more than 2 clients, I would say. Otherwise, you might be investing too much money into the business. You can probably cut some things back. So you're asking about the done for you sales page, which is part of Pro Coach. Will that be enough of a source to get enough clients to cover that cost? I wouldn't bet on it. As someone who, like, I get maybe 1 to 2 reach outs from that page per month. And that is mostly because I have articles online in like national newspapers and international magazines and stuff like that. And folks Google me, and that's why it comes up. But just to put the page up on its own with no native web presence is going to be very unlikely that someone's going to find you just through that page. So where does that leave you? You can continue to use Pro Coach, the software, to coach any clients that you have available to you. In terms of searching for clients, you're in the same boat as every other PN coach, which is working within your community to find people who are probably already know and like you and trust you to help them work on these things.
Okay, yeah, that's my only question regarding clients. I mean, overall, it seems like everybody does receive an amount of clients. So I think it wouldn't be hard to get any clients. I don't think it would be hard. But just, I guess, the thought of, okay, when should I post the website? Am I charging enough? Am I not charging enough? Things like that. It's just, and I see that the software is really well centered. It's really well organized in terms of helping the client lose weight, and the books help you understand like what should you do starting off the bat with one client specifically if they're new to losing weight, and then like client there's like level 3, right? Clients where like they might
Mhm.
be they're a little bit more knowledgeable of what it takes to lose weight and reaching goals and things like that. So it's it's really cool because the software does help you a lot. It's really like it's really cool. I really liked it. So that's my only thought. I'm almost done with the certification. I'm on chapter 17. But I think I will be posting the website just because it's part of the certification and it's part of training, right? So I think it's kind of important to have that website up for people to see and look up.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something that you can point people towards where this is coming up in conversation. So you're out in the world speaking with your people, they're asking you, "Hey, what's new? What are you working on? What are you doing these days?" And you need something to show them that is a tangible reference to the work that you're currently doing, then having the done for you sales page is incredibly useful of having that real world resource and that touch point that can help people be like, hey, this is someone who is clearly taking their craft seriously. They have a professional done site. Maybe I can ask them more questions and it furthers your legitimacy as a coach. Is it the first thing that I think is the most important? Maybe not. I think first, start noticing that you're having those conversations with folks. People are asking you what you're doing. You're sharing the work that you're passionate about in other mediums. And then once you start to notice that that conversation happens, then sending them to your website can be very useful as a way to segue them from curious onlooker to prospective client.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. I think that takes us basically right up to time for today, folks. Uh, Thank you all for the conversation, kicking off the year. And we'll see you again at the next one. Cheers, folks.
Thank you.